Hey everybody, it's Russell with DieselGiant.com. On today's video, I'm going to show you how to replace this, your Volkswagen TDI glow plug harness. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Hey guys, today, as I said, we're going to be replacing the glow plug harness on the Volkswagen TDI. There's a couple of things. First of all, you may not have even realized that this was on your car, but this is basically what gets the power from the main harness to each individual glow plug. A couple bad things about this, and shame on Volkswagen for doing this. This is made out of a semi-flexible, semi-hard thermoplastic. And the problem with this is, after it sits on your engine and during heat cycles for around 5 years or so, that seems to be the market where these start getting brittle, they'll actually break. If you go to replace your glow plugs around year 4 or 5 and you go to remove it, oftentimes this boot will break off and you've got to install a new glow plug harness. Now, I don't know why Volkswagen chose this design, probably because of cost. It looks like a fairly cheap part, and this is an actual Volkswagen marked part. Fortunately, they do have, I would call, quick connectors, because I think they knew that you were going to have to be replacing this. The other problem with this design of this harness is inside where the glow plug attaches to the metal circular piece, which I will show you on the broken one on the car. It's perforated. Now, if you live in an area that has corrosion, and you've experienced this before on other types of maybe diesels with their glow plug harnesses, you know a lot of times you need to clean the corrosion with a small copper brush in here, but as I'll show you later, it's not really possible or advisable because you end up damaging the aluminum connector that's inside here because it's so fragile. So, you know, this is what we've got to work with. This will be the third one that I've put on my car, and the car's 15 years old, it's a 98, so they last about 5 years. Right now, when it's brand new, it's semi-flexible. If they had only made this out of rubber, like it's real flexible, like on a spark plug boot, we wouldn't have to be changing it, but Volkswagen wouldn't get to sell parts. So that being said, it is what it is. So I'm going to show you guys how to replace this. It's not a hard job. It's a job that'll save you a lot of money instead of having to take it to the dealership. So don't go away. We'll be right back in the shop. All right, what we're looking at right here is this is the glow plug harness. Right under there is the glow plug, right under there, right under there. But as you can see, it's underneath our injection lines, and it goes all the way over, and then there's the two connectors. Now the only thing that makes this job just slightly difficult is there's heat shrink tubing on here, which I put on last time. You want to do that because of corrosion between these two spade connectors. So I'm going to have to very, very, very gently take this heat shrink tubing off, then I can disconnect this. We'll disconnect the injection lines there and also down at the pump. We'll move the lines out of the way, and then we can remove the glow plug harness. Alright, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen all 4 of the injector lines that are on top of the injectors. These take a 17mm wrench. Step number 2 will be to remove the electrical connector from the injection pump and all 4 of the lines from the pump itself. Now I recommend taking these two off first. This is number 4 and the number 3. and these two are on the front, and lay those aside. Then it gives you access to the number 1 and 2 on the pump itself. It's very hard to get this wrench onto the number 2 line if you don't move those out first. Now I do recommend that these connectors right here that hold the lines in their relative positions, do not remove those. Okay, leave those there. Just remove the nuts on each end. Next step is we're going to remove the harness from each glow plug by pulling straight up. So that it is loose like that. You can see right here is where the plug or the boot broke. Okay, unfortunately, due to the nature of where this is and the way the lighting is, I'm just going to show you guys what I'm doing so far. I think the best way to do this is to use a little pick. If you try to slice this with the razor blade, if you get down here where the harness is and you go too deep, you're going to cut into the wire, which is what you don't want to do. So I just take this pick and force it up under there and poke holes in it until it rips. This will not hurt the wire, the engine harness at all. Alright, I've got the heat shrink off of both sides. As you can see, I didn't damage the wires at all. You can see where the connectors connect into the main harness. It took me about 3 minutes of using the pick to dig out the remnants, and these are the 2 remnants. So it is a much better option than using a razor blade because you're not going to gouge the wires. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove these 2 spade connectors and pull the old harness out. Now you can see right here, this is the end of where the glow plug would attach to. And you can see how it's, the camera will focus, it's slightly perforated in there. So I don't have any corrosion on this at all. It's just that this boot broke, and also this boot broke too. Well, and this one was broke, but you can see how the plastic is just brittle now. It's very brittle from sitting on that engine, and it's not flexible at all. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to take a piece of heat shrink tubing. It needs to be 2 1/4 inches long, and it's just going to fit over that and then fit over the rest of the harness. It's not going to go over this at all, this rubber piece, but it will fit there. So the easiest thing to do is to put it on the engine side, slide it down as far as you can, and then go ahead and plug in the spade connectors. I've had to slip it all the way on, but still have access to this connector. You know, and this is all the slack that we have. Volkswagen could have given us a couple more inches, but they didn't. So I'm going to plug both ends in after I have this, and then I'm going to slide this heat shrink tubing back over the connection. Alright, as you can see, I've got both pieces of heat shrink tubing pushed all the way up to the rubber connector, so it's completely covering the joint here. Now here's where it gets fun. Heat shrink tubing works great with a lighter. I probably wouldn't recommend using a lighter, but if that's all that you have,
that's all that you can use. Please don't use a torch. You're going to end up causing yourself some real nightmares if you burn any of these wires, because right below that is your main engine harness. So if you have a heat gun or even a hair dryer that you can borrow from your wife or your girlfriend, I would highly suggest you do that. I'm going to use a heat gun. This is the heat gun I've got. You can get these Home Depot, Lowe's, you can get them at Northern Tool. They're not expensive. I think these are under 30 bucks. This will be a little noisy. Alright, you can see using the heat gun is absolutely perfect. It doesn't burn the wire. It makes a nice weather-tight connection, which will be good, well, for another 5 years till you have to do this again. Okay, I went ahead and took some brake parts cleaner and cleaned our lines up, making sure the threads and everything were clean. These two lines go to the number 1 and 2 cylinders, and we're going to do that because the 1 and 2 cylinders are on the back of the pump. As you finish tightening it up by hand. Now we're going to put on the lines for number 3 and 4 cylinder. Okay, so before we put the other set of lines on, we have to go ahead and tighten up the lines down here or we won't be able to get to them. Remember, we took the front 2 off, which was 3 and 4 first, so we have to put 3 and 4 on last. Tighten the nuts up on the injectors themselves. Just snug them up. There is a torque spec on them if you have a 17mm crow's foot that you can use. Okay, so next is we'll go ahead and put on the number 3 and 4 line. Next, we're going to go ahead and put the injector return lines on each injector. Alright, here's what we got. I went ahead and put on the plug for the number 1 injector, and then I put each return line on, and then I plugged back in our electrical connection for the injection pump. Now remember, I've left this loose because this is going to be our bleed when we try to crank it. Now it's not gonna start immediately. Don't get all freaked out. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to start the car, and we'll see how long it actually takes before it fires over. So after you crank it a bit, we'll check and we see that we are getting fuel out there, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up.